Gentlemen, welcome to the Board of Directors meeting of Thursday, 15 October 2015. I'm going to make a round of introductions now. I'm Carl Henninger. I'm the president of the GTCA.
John Haig, legal counsel.
Barbara Drashak, director.
Joe Purcell, director.
Sohila Pobler, director.
Justin Mack, Director at Large.
Rich Salafuente, Director at Large.
Richard Miller, Director.
Frank Filippoli, General Manager.
Arnaud Sadie is on the phone.
Sadiq, Director, Tower 3.
The first order of business tonight is the approval of the open meeting minutes of September the 17th, 2015.
Motion to approve the open meeting minutes from September 17th, 2015.
Is there a second? Motion is seconded. Are there any comments or discussions? There appears to be no comments in the minutes. Okay, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor of the approval of the minutes of September 17th, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. The minutes are approved. This Sunday, October the 18th, we have the 15th Annual Holiday Bazaar. It's going to take place in the Galaxy Mall. Everybody should come. It's a nice time to buy Christmas gifts. All the profits from the Galaxy Bazaar are usually donated to a local charity. We're going to now have a legal report by our legal counsel.
I have two items to report on. First, with respect to Airbnb rentals, the firm has sent a notice letter to Airbnb at their corporate offices in San Francisco, advising them of the restriction on short-term stays and rentals here, and advising further that we have an enforcement policy at Galaxy and that we will provide copies of this letter of notice to any individuals who come here on behest of Airbnb, so that they're aware that Airbnb had prior notice of the circumstances. With respect to contracts, we have, at the request of management, prepared a towing service agreement for the garage and common driveways with Kiwi's Auto Repair, which I believe Frank Filippoli will be discussing in his management report later this evening. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions from legal counsel related to the report? There appears to be no questions. We'll now go to the general manager.
Thank you, Mr. President, Galaxy Board, and community. It's my pleasure to provide updates on several ongoing projects, new initiatives, and operational items which management has worked on in the past month. On the garage project, on the morning of Tuesday, September 29th, some bad news here. One of the garage contract workers was struck by a vehicle which was exiting the garage. The worker was seriously injured and is expected to be disabled and unable to work for the next 6 months. In the last month, there was also a report of a near miss involving a resident who was almost struck by a speeding vehicle. Incidents such as this illustrate the critical need for all drivers to use an extra measure of caution when driving through the garage. We continue to caution residents and guests to comply with the 5-mile-an-hour speed limit rule, and we also ask that residents inform their guests using the garage of the same. The security group also continues to perform spot checks with the radar detector. A number of first warnings have been issued. Almost all have been to non-residents. And for non-residents, a second offense may result in the loss of all privileges to park in the garage. Also, on the garage project, last week, following an incident where exhaust fumes from the contractor's air compressor penetrated the maintenance and management offices in Tower 1, The project was halted until an engineer-approved exhaust design was determined. This was accomplished yesterday, at which time the project resumed. Despite these issues, the garage project remains about 2 to 3 months ahead of schedule presently. The atrium glass project is now complete. That is the replacement of the glass. The final stage of this project simply involves caulking and window washing, which will be completed next Friday. The HVAC project, this project to replace 7 large air conditioning and heating units servicing the spa and lower common areas, is approximately 60% complete today. The units serving the spa lounge and cardio room will be fully assembled next week and started at that time. This is about 1 week later than I reported the target for those items last month's meeting. However, the overall project is on track for completion before the end of November, which was originally anticipated. The pool atrium roof work commenced on Tuesday of this week. This project started 2 weeks late due to weather delays, and also the foreman had a car accident on the way to the job Monday morning, so that delayed it another day. Project completion date will be next Friday, barring any other weather or other disruptions. However, that will not delay the opening of the indoor pool, which is scheduled to be opened by no later than Monday the 19th. The hallway redecorating committee held its 3rd meeting this Wednesday with Mancini Duffy, our design partners, and final samples for carpeting, wall covering, and lighting were considered by the committee. We have final committee consensus on wall covering and lighting, and there are at least 3 carpet options that are being considered further. The next meeting will be next week. This project is also moving along on schedule. Quick update on the 5-man restoration team. They continue to make tremendous progress over the last month to improve Galaxy Tower's curb appeal. The transformation is certainly obvious, and a partial list of their accomplishments so far: mini park benches and pergola in the mini park restored and painted, plaza driveway curbs painted, mall concrete work on planter caps repaired and painted, mall flower pots, ramps, railings, and metal work painted, bollards on JFK Boulevard restored and painted, indoor pool concrete shelves and columns restored and painted, 18th and 16th floor garage entrances painted, tower bridges and plaza pergolas also repainted. This work will continue for approximately the next 30 days. Boiler engineering on new initiatives. An RFP for boiler engineering was sent to 7 engineering firms. This was for the design, repair, and replacement of the boilers, heat exchangers, and associated distribution and control systems comprising the greater Galaxy Towers heating plant. Comments were received by some of the bidders, which are now being incorporated into an addendum to be issued next week. Bids will be due in approximately 2 weeks for this stage of the work, which is engineering only. We've also advertised an RFP for task order mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering contract. It was completed for advertisement and sent out this week. Once awarded, this contract will be used to engage engineers to inspect, evaluate, and design solutions to a myriad of electrical, mechanical, and plumbing issues throughout the Galaxy for improvement. A quick update on the repair of Elevator 1 in Tower 1, which has been down for a good 2 months. This was originally damaged during the lightning strike in late July. During the initial repair, it was discovered that there was more internal damage than originally anticipated. The motor and internal armature of the motor had to be completely replaced. This is original equipment, no longer commercially available. So the internal parts of the motor had to be sent out to a third-party specialty shop to be remanufactured. It is finally back here on the property. We expect that elevator will be back in service by tomorrow afternoon. Back to the boilers for just a moment. Boiler number 2 was taken out of service and partially dismantled in mid-July for routine service and annual state inspection. At that time, rusted areas were discovered inside, and some broken refractories were also discovered. As more of the boiler was dismantled to make these initial repairs, more extensive damage was discovered. Additional repairs were done and finally completed last week. The boiler was partially reassembled, passed its annual state inspection, and will be back in operation by no later than the midweek next week. At which time boiler number 1 will be opened up and exposed for its annual maintenance and inspection. Mall upper level walkway floor drains. This has been an ongoing problem which has damaged the ceiling underneath the mall upper level walkway. Staff awarded a contract this week to Guyanella Mechanical in the amount of $12,650. These 9 drains on the upper walkway are broken, have cracked piping, cracked drain sump bulbs. This caused significant damage, as I said, to the ceiling below. They're beyond repair, so they must be replaced. Competitive bids were solicited from 4 contractors for this work. The bids ranging from $26,590 to $12,659 to $29,700. The award went a little bit. Also, water treatment contract for cooling towers, boilers, and steam generators. Staff solicited bids in the past month, and we are ready to award a contract, an annual contract for water treatment for the captured equipment to include monthly inspections, monitoring, supply of chemicals to inhibit microbial growth, scale, and corrosion. Bids were received from 3 firms ranging from $7,900 to $8,650. The low bidder, Newchem, which is our current vendor, will be awarded the contract. Newchem did an excellent job of cleaning, monitoring, and treating the Galaxy cooling tower over the summer during the outbreak of Legionella in cooling towers in the New York area. On the operational side, regarding front desk operations, front desk staff continues to receive one-on-one mentoring from planned companies and First Service Residential senior managers. The goal of the mentoring effort is to focus on 2 critical procedures: access control / guest reception, and chain of custody for packages and keys. Serving as mentors are executive vice presidents of both planned companies and First Service Residential, and the CEO of planned companies, who are demonstrating procedures and core service standards while actually performing the job of the concierge for half an hour to an hour at each time to demonstrate. The front desk staffs are required to become familiar with the residents in their respective towers and greet each resident by name when they enter the property. However, recognizing 800 plus residents living in each tower is, needless to say, a challenging task, if not impossible. Your concierge cannot recognize you by name. He or she will politely ask you to identify yourself and reintroduce yourself and indicate your apartment number. And residents are encouraged to be proactive, volunteer the information when they come into the lobbies. This will speed up the process and help your concierge to more quickly learn to recognize you as a resident. The continued patience of the community is appreciated, as this process may be repeated several times until your concierge can recognize you on site and greet you by name. Following the accumulation of this training and mentoring this week, the managers will convene to compare notes and their observations and recommendations, a few of which have already been submitted for consideration. Also, regarding access control, a critical element are the key fobs that are used to enter the towers from the garage. The key fob audit, which is ongoing, is running smoothly. We have sent letters to owners and tenants, and we're receiving reforms back on a regular basis. We processed about 250 so far, and we're still on track for a November 15th reboot of the entire key fob software, which would eliminate any and all outstanding key fobs that have not been re-registered. So we know there's some out there that have gotten away from us over the last couple of years, and that will be all remedied finally by November 15th. A few staff changes to report. Last month, we saw the departure of Facility Director Scott Vitello, who's no longer with GTCA. John Lynch of First Service Residential took over as Acting Director of Facilities. John began working with the staff immediately to streamline procedures with an eye toward improving response time and overall customer service, among other initiatives. All the work orders and projects are prioritized by John personally and appropriately monitored. Alteration requests, which in some cases were taking several weeks to approve, are now answered within 5 business days. John also took immediate control and overseeing the garage project, atrium glass, HVAC, and indoor pool roof. In addition, John has initiated the RFPs for the engineering work and boiler replacement, and finally the MVP engineering contract. Also, Cody Robinson, Assistant Spa Manager, will be leaving the Galaxy. Her last day will be Sunday, October 18th. Cody will remain available to work as a lifeguard on a part-time basis as needed. We wish Cody well. And a new staffing plan for the spa will follow shortly. The indoor pool is still on target to open by no later than Monday, October 19th. Sooner if we can. If that's the case, there'll be an emergency last-minute announcement made, hopefully by tomorrow, but please stay tuned. And finally, there are 4 decision items for board action tonight. The annual property and general liability insurance policies, GTCA computer server upgrade, Plaza Garage towing agreement, and finally, the electrical energy contracts for the period beginning January 1st, 2017, which I'll elaborate in more depth when we get to that part of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Are there any questions from the board concerning this report?
Thank you, Frank, for a comprehensive report. There are lots of projects carrying on. I just have a question regarding water treatment. We didn't have water treatment for the boilers.
Yes, we did. We did have water treatment for the last 12-month period. It included water treatment for the boilers and the cooling tower. This is a renewal contract.
Are there any other questions? There appear to be no other questions. We're now going to move on to the Treasurer's Controller's report. Joe, would you like to introduce the
The new controller at the Galaxy is now Albert Manzo, or Al Manzo. You prefer Al?
Whatever's easy. Whatever you remember.
All right, well, he's taken over as controller now. Brian has moved on and has left the controller firm, so Brian is now. Al's now taken over, so he's going to introduce himself and do the controller for tonight.
Good evening. I'm Al Manzo. I'm going to give you the financial report tonight. As of September 30th, there's $6,128,000 in cash. $4,566,000 of that, $4,556,000 of that is available cash. Of that, $4,456,000 is in the R&R account, and $223,000 is in the deposit account. Accounts receivable as of September 30th totaled $3.526 million. Of that, $3,426,000 is in legal, $38,846 is in payment plans, $41,000 is less than 30 days outstanding, $9,000 is within 30 to 60 days outstanding, and $11,000 is within over 60 days outstanding. Total accounts payable as of August 31st are $1,266,000, which includes all invoices posted as of August 31st and all known accruals. Legal invoices account for approximately $56,000 of that, and R&R invoices account for approximately $202,000 of that. Of all the accounts payable, $850,000 are outstanding 0 to 30 days, $233,000 are outstanding 30 to 60 days, $26,000 are outstanding 60 to 90 days, and $155,000 are outstanding over 90 days. 83% of that relates to disputed Slate Elevator invoices. For the month of September, $386,218 of payments were made through Condo Cafe. As of October 7th, 2015, there were 620 owner occupants, which represented about 58%, 455 absentee owners, which represented about 42%. Of the 455 absentee owners, 406 were occupied by tenants, which is 89% of the absentee owners, or 38% of all Galaxy units. The monthly financial package should be available early next week, and that concludes my report.
Are there any questions from the board for the controller?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There appears to be none. Thank you very much. We're now going to move on to the election committee's report for 2015. The board has just received this report. Tonight, we're not going to debate or accept or approve the recommendations contained in the report. At next month's meeting, we have to approve the rules for the 2016 election. This will be based on the board's review of the committee's recommendations. We have to do this because the elections are scheduled now to begin December the 7th, or at least the petitions would be distributed for that. So next month, we will have a discussion of the rules at the board meeting when we have the motion to approve the rules. So let me turn this over to Jerry Tresha, who will give the elections committee report.
Thank you, Carl. First, I just want to apologize to the board for delaying getting this to you, but given the recommendations that are made, and there are not a lot of them to be made for this year's report, we would still be on time, on the same type of time schedule that we were on last year in terms of what needs to be done, in terms of modifying the rules, approving the rules, selecting an election coordinator, and things like that. There's still plenty of time to get everything done. With respect to the 2015 election, the committee was appointed pursuant to the bylaws of the association. Once the committee was appointed, it set to work to revise the rules, working with the board on recommendations that were made last year. The board eventually approved a set of rules that became the rules for the 2015 election. A new factor that was put in the rules last year, beginning of this year, was the return to the use of an outside election coordinator, which we had not done in many, many years. The committee developed a proposal in conjunction with legal counsel, went out for requests for proposals, and got 2 responses and made a recommendation to the board as to who the election coordinator should be. We used Honest Ballot, which is a firm located in Long Island. They had done several elections here at the Galaxy before, and were able to handle this year's election without any major difficulties. Another new factor that was added, that's not new, but it's the first time we've actually used it, was the use of an outside arbitrator. At the conclusion of the election, there was a dispute that could not be resolved by neither the committee nor the election coordinator, and we went through the arbitration process. It delayed the seating of new board members for approximately 6 weeks, and while that seems like a long time, if you compare it to the delay that occurred in 2013, when the recourse was to the courts, that delay was several months. So I think the use of the outside arbitrator worked out well. Once the election coordinator was selected, the committee worked with the Galaxy office on making sure we had an accurate list of owners, labels were prepared, and everything concerning the distribution of election material, collection of ballots was handled by the outside coordinator. At no point did anybody from the committee come in contact with or have access to any of the ballots. The committee's role, once the process actually started, was to coordinate between the election coordinator and the office on things like mail that couldn't be delivered, trying to find are there other addresses for the owners. People who reported that they had lost their ballot, and all of that was handled similar to the way it's been handled in the past in terms of replacement ballots, but the process was handled by the election coordinator. Again, handling of mail-in ballots was all in the hands of the election coordinator throughout the process. Election coordinator oversaw candidates' night, which occurred without any major incidents or disruptions. On election night, in-person voting took place in the Spa Lounge. It came off for the most part without any major problems. Again, handled kind of the same way we've handled it in the past. People who were not in good standing or had questions about their ballots were able to have those questions addressed. Anyone who was not in good standing and was able to resolve their issue with representatives from the office that were here were able to cast their vote. There was the same, we continued the provision for challenge ballots, the only change being the determination as to whether or not a challenge ballot was going to be counted or not was made by the election coordinator. There were, and I don't have the exact number in my head right now, but there were a couple of ballots that were challenged that was resolved before any final vote count was announced. Final vote count was announced by honest ballot, communicated to the candidates, and we received a certification within a few days from the election coordinator. Prior to that certification being issued, though, there was a challenge brought by 3 candidates concerning certain issues that took place on election night. All of the problems revolved around election night. There was an attempt to resolve those. There was a response sent by the committee, and then a response sent by honest ballot. That did not resolve it, and it went to arbitration. The arbitrator was selected in accordance with the rules. The parties that were involved submitted their positions to the arbitrator, and he issued the decision in April, about 6 weeks after the closing of the polls, in which he found that the election had been conducted in accordance with the rules. And once that was received, honest ballot issued their final certification, and the new board of directors received. The committee has submitted to the board a set of recommendations for next year's election, or the 2016 election. I'm not going to go into detail because you guys haven't had a chance to discuss that, and it's probably something that should wait till you have a chance to review it. It deals with, just in general, it deals with things like certain campaign activity, the arbitrator, the selection of the arbitrator. One of the things we felt could have been done better was the arbitrator wasn't really put in place until after we knew there was a dispute. We think it would be preferable to have that person, and the rules provide that that person be identified at the time the election coordinator is selected, so that we don't lose any time. The whole point of the process is to get the election resolved as quickly as possible. We have also made some recommendations concerning the allocation of costs for the arbitrator. There's also some again, I don't want to discuss it right now. You guys will look at the report. Some recommendations in terms of working with the office in terms of getting accurate lists of who the owners are. It took a lot of work last year, particularly this was a general election involving the mall, and figuring out, since the subdivision of the mall, exactly what the mall units are, how many there are, who the true owners are. That took a lot of work, and that all had to be done before the mailing went out, but that's something I would recommend the office should be starting to work on right now, so that when they give us a certification as to the accurate list, it's an accurate list. I think that pretty much covers it, unless you guys have any questions.
Are there any questions for the board concerning this report?
As I said at the end of the report, if you guys have a chance to look at it, when you're ready to think about what you want to do with the rules, be more than happy to come down and meet with you and members of last year's committee also. Okay? Thank you.
On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you and the election committee for your work last year. We're now going to move on to unfinished business. There is no unfinished business, new business. The first item of new business is the appointment of chairman and members of the election committee for 2016. This is necessary to do now so we can move ahead with the election, which should start December the 7th. May I have a motion?
Motion to appoint the following individuals as members of the 2016 election committee. Jerry Drashuk as chairperson, Barbara Zeiger, Linda Varigan, Jovinda Bakshi, and Ann Persico as voting members, and Mark Price and Al Casso as alternate members.
Do I have a second? The motion is seconded. Discussion.
See, there's a change here. There was another name, Ann Persico was a voting member. Now, what you...
She has declined.
Okay. Fine. The other thing is, can we split up the voting? Usually we do the chair separate from the committee members.
Make a motion if you want to do that.
Okay, I make a motion to amend the motion and
But just separate.
separate the voting for the chair and the rest of the committee.
Is there a second? There is no second. Is there any further discussion? We'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the election committee and the members of the committee and the alternates, raise your hand. Signify yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the GTA server contract. If, first, maybe we can have Barbara read the motions.
Okay, this will be a few motions. First motion is authorization to award to technology engineers and architects of Saddlebrook, New Jersey, for the replacement of the Galaxy's computer server in the amount of $12,730, which represents a one-time cost for the upgrade of hardware, software, and programming. That's it.
Do we have a second? The motion is seconded. Do we have any discussion of the motion? There appears to be no discussion of the motion. All those in favor of approving the new server, raise your hand and say yes.
Yes.
Motion is unanimous. Next motion, please.
Motion to authorize the award of an annual contract to technology engineers and architects for backup cloud storage in the amount of $4,788. It's an annual contract, so that payment's annually.
Perhaps this should be just a motion for the backup cloud storage.
That's what I just read. An annual contract for the,
Without the element, right?
yeah.
Is there a second? The motion is second. Discussion of the backup cloud storage. Justin?
Who seconded?
Sedell.
I just want to clarify that's like not a reoccurring, it's just for a one-year contract? This is something that we have to vote on annually, or is that?
Yes, it would be, it's an
That's
annual
for-
contract, it's 1 year.
It's a one-year contract. Thank you.
Any other comments?
The only point of discussion I have is that I do not see any benefit in putting it in the cloud versus having several hard drives in different locations throughout the building to do exactly the same thing. Will include the backup of files as well as creating an image of the hard drive. Whatever is on the server will be the image.
Is there any other discussion?
I'll echo Art a little bit in the sense of this is something maybe we can see how the new server goes and, use the backup, the manual backup, there are, the on-site backup, just in the sense of larger corporations are concerned with moving to the cloud, and we're working with a new company, maybe members of the board get a little more comfort after they get this up and running and see how it goes with the regular backup, and if we wanted to bring this back, after we see how the on-site storage backup is working first, maybe it's something we can consider then. I'm not asking to change the motion, I'm just saying if the motion passes, it passes. If it doesn't, then it's something that can be revisited.
Any further comments? I'm going to call for a motion to approve the purchase of the backup cloud storage. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Aye.
3. I abstain. The motion carries.
No, Justin, Richard, Sorella, and I voted in favor.
Yes.
Art, Richard, Richie, Joe, against, and you abstain. Okay.
Motion carries. Next motion, please.
Motion to award an hourly IT support contract to technology engineers and architects at a rate of $100 per hour, which shall be incurred, which said charges shall be incurred as they're used and are approximated at $9,600 for a year.
Is there a second? Any discussion? There appears to be no discussion. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say yes.
Yes.
I believe it's unanimous. And the last motion?
Motion to award an annual contract to Microsoft to migrate Galaxy's email exchange to a Microsoft-hosted email exchange server at a cost of $1,800 per year.
Seconded. Mr. Hallett. Any discussion? There appears no discussion. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say yes.
Yes.
Motion passes. The next item of business is a towing contract. This would be provide towing services for the Galaxy Garage and the Plaza driveway.
Motion to authorize the award of a contract to Heavy's Towing of North Bergen, New Jersey for a 1-year no-cost agreement to remove vehicles from the Galaxy Towers condominium garage and/or plaza driveway at the request of management.
It's seconded. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Just wanted to clarify that the signage is not on this motion, right? We're still going to discuss the signage?
Signage is not on the motion. Signage will have to be placed on the building.
Well, I'm going to say we didn't agree upon the signage, the wording of the signage
I
is not
don't
part of this
believe
motion.
agreed on the wording of the signage, but I believe we discussed and agreed that signage had to be there.
Oh, no, I'm just saying the actual wording on the signage is, I've seen that, but that's not, the signage that's in the booklet is not going to be part of this motion.
No, it's not going to be a part of the motion.
Okay,
And
thank
we can certainly consider the exact
I
language.
think we need to re-look at that signage.
We can certainly do that. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand or signify by saying yes.
Yes.
4. Unanimous. The next issue is our insurance renewal. Most of our policies come due on this Saturday. We have to renew the insurance for 2015, 2016. Last year, we spent $629,148 in premium for property and general liability insurance. Barbara, can you please make the motion?
Motion to authorize the award of the the 2015-2016 annual contracts for property insurance to the affiliated FM insurance company in the amount of $321,108. That's it, that's the first portion.
This motion is seconded. Is there any discussion of the award to affiliate FM? There appears to be no discussion of the award to affiliated. You show of hands, raise your hand to signify yes or say yes.
Yes.
The motion carries. Next motion.
Okay. Motion to authorize the award of the 2015-2016 annual contract for general liability insurance to Federal Insurance Company, also known as Chubb, in the amount of $193,586.
A second, seconded by Justin. Any comments? There appears to be no discussion from the board. All those in favor of the Chubb contract, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, next motion.
Motion to authorize the award of the 2015-2016 annual contract for umbrella coverage to Vanderbilt Risk Management, RPG, in the amount of $36,600, plus a broker fee of $3,500, which brings the net umbrella coverage payment to $40,100.
It's seconded. Any comments? There appears to be no comments. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand to signify yes or say yes.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Last insurance one. Motion to designate York International as broker of record for the 2015-2016 insurance year, which would authorize York to solicit competitive quotes for renewal of policies for crime, directors and officers, fiduciary liability, auto, and workers' compensation, all of which are due for renewal in December 2015 and January 2016.
Motion is seconded. Any discussion? Joe?
I just, since this motion was broken up into a couple of pieces, I just wanted to, give the overall savings for the insurance next year will be approximately $84,000. And I think Frank deserves some credit for bringing in a second broker to kind of competitively bid against the broker that we've had here for years, which in essence, the initial offer that came in was a 6% increase. And I think due to Frank's diligence with this and some board members' additional pushing on it as well. But I just want to thank Frank for that, because I think without him and without going out to that second broker, we would have heard you guys had a tough year last year. You're getting a 6% increase, and instead we're getting a 13% decrease, and it's material dollars for insurance. And it's virtually.
Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand to say yes or say yes.
Yes.
Motion is unanimous. And the last item on the regular agenda is the electric energy contract, which is reasonably extensive motion.
Okay, motion to authorize Premier Energy Auctions of Fairfield, New Jersey to prepare an RPP on behalf of the GTCA and solicit bids in an online auction for the award of a contract not to exceed 40 months to the lowest responsive bidder for that portion of the association's electricity expenses known as the index adder, and additional authorization for the general manager in consultation with Premier Energy Auctions to monitor the New York Mercantile Exchange and enter into one or more contracts with layered hedges for all or portion of the GTCA's electrical energy supply for the same 40-month period. Whenever the electricity commodities pricing is deemed most advantageous to the GTCA, However, in no event shall the combined cost of the index adder and electrical energy supply exceed 0.09 cents per kilowatt hour.
Is there a second? It's seconded by Justin. Rather than ask for comments directly, I'm going to ask Frank to explain some of these terms, especially what's an index adder, what's layered hedging. This is reasonably complex in the reading of the motion. Would you please?
Certainly. Your electricity costs are comprised of three components. The actual cost of the supply of electricity, which can now, since deregulation, come from any supplier across the country. And there are two other costs. An index adder, and the index adder is comprised of the expenses for that supplier to transmit the electricity to the PSE&G grid here in New Jersey. And also, there are some minor ancillary costs in that index adder associated with the loss of a small percentage of that power as it's transmitted from across the country, and other minor fees, and so minor as not to be listed individually. The index adder is the portion of the expense that we want to do an online auction for to lock that price in based on whichever supplier gives us the lowest bid for this index adder. The index adder, by the way, represents about 25% of your total electricity costs. Once that low bid contract is locked in using an online auction, then we will be poised and ready to make commitments or hedged purchases for the second element of your electrical energy costs, and that's the supply costs. Those hedged purchases or contracts, which will not go into effect until 2017, will be based on whatever the New York Mercantile Exchange for that particular day is running for the electrical supply costs. So we'll make those purchases based on a favorable commodities exchange rate sometime between now and 2017, the beginning of 2017. This is important to do now because we're currently in a very favorable position to be able to buy this energy at about 1 cent less than it's currently being purchased. And it's quite likely that by next week, after the online auction is successfully undertaken and awarded to one of these supply contracts, that we will then lock in somewhere between 25 and 50% of your future energy purchases at today's favorable rate, which again is about 1 cent lower than what you're paying now. If we were to do that, then by next week we can guarantee that the Galaxy's electricity expense will be at least $100,000 a year lower than it is today. And that's if we lock in about half of your contracts for 2017 and beyond. So those are the two main components, the adder and the actual supply cost, which we want to act on now. The third component is the delivery cost, and that is the portion of the fee that's paid to the local utility PSE&G. That represents about 40% of your energy costs, and that is a fixed fee based on regulation by the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. So that is not something that we can manipulate or bargain against. It is what it is. So we want to immediately act to the benefit of GTCA for those other two elements, which today are favorable given market conditions.
Are there any questions?
I just want to speak about the subject in general. I said it earlier tonight to the board, and I just don't see that there's enough savings because something doesn't seem right. Electric increased last year over 300,000, I think it was 360, so the savings should be even more than you're quoting. I also believe we have a fiduciary responsibility not to play around with homeowners' money, and I would just buy straight out. We can buy when the contract ends or wait a while for the whole thing, so I don't agree with the whole principle. But there's something even more important. We have what's called AR-37, which is, and it involves this, prohibiting unit owner employment with GTCA purchasing. There's evidence that the relationships here were never correctly disclosed. There's evidence of a homeowner involvement to some extent. And if that's the case, then AR-37 has already been violated, cast doubt on the entire process. So I have some information here that I'll give to the board and I'll give to John, and you can decide. So actually, I'd like to ask that this be postponed, but of course it's up to the board. I'm not going to mention the name of the homeowner. Because it's not right to mention it. You want to mention it, you can mention it.
Richard, I think it would have been very proper for you to bring this before the board when we discussed this for the last 2 weeks, rather than bringing it up
I
to the
didn't
board.
finish my,
I know you, and I haven't finished my comments.
Good.
When you can finish your comments and I finish speaking, I think it's really not right for you to spring this on the board at this time. But you can go on now with your comments.
So I'm finished with my comments, but there's a lot of things that this board that does is not right. Like when I'm excluded from meetings and you come up with a copyrighted excuse.
Richard, you're
So-
out of order. Now, is there anything?
I remember a few meetings
Richard, you're
ago,
out of order.
Justin
You're out of
made a
order.
motion, and he didn't discuss it with the board ahead of
You're
time.
out of order, Richard.
Calm, please calm down.
Come on,
Are there any other
he's a
comments?
board member.
It's okay that
Please, Sahela, you're not recognized. Are there any
Would you like to have a
comments?
calm meeting without the correct information?
Sahela?
Richard, instead of making, those kind of stage in open session, why don't you work with the rest of the board and bring all your concerns when you are on the working session? This is not, acceptable. I mean, we have to work together. I really appreciate it.
This should not be a discussion, no, Richard's time.
Can you work together?
You have I believe you made a motion to table.
Postpone.
Motion to postpone is discussed. Is there a second on the motion to postpone? There is no second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? There's no further discussion.
Well, I'd like, okay, so,
So, question for Director Miller, through the chair. You handed us a piece of paper printed out from Gmail. Where did you get this? Did you ask the owner? Who is John? It says John Lupo. Who is that? I've never met this person. He's never met with the board. No, I have no idea. I've never met with him.
I don't think it's appropriate to discuss this right now.
He brought it up. I'm not, where
You
did
didn't
this?
have to disclose it. Do
Just
your own.
please, just stop for a second. Stop for a second. Let me just ask John.
Perhaps this is a closed session.
Please.
Would not be appropriate to discuss an individual without having researched the circumstances to make a determination as to whether or not there's an issue. That's something that's going to be done on an investigative basis, not in front of the board, or in an open discussion with the board.
And that's why it should be brought up in a working session. We're discussing it, right?
Aha.
Please. Okay.
Let me remind you that a lot of
Richard,
things
you're not
discussed
recognized.
without
If you want to
me,
be
no
recognized-
emails.
Richard,
I've
if
been
you
on
want to
the board
be
for 7
recognized,
years.
please.
Please control your paranoia, Mr.
Please,
Miller.
Richard, Barbara. Okay.
Don't cast me as being paranoid. Would you like me to keep?
Richard, please. You're not recognized. If you want to be recognized, you can. Are there any further discussions on this motion? ask for a vote on this motion. All those in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Well, just wait a minute. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed?
We're voting on what?
We're voting on the motion.
To postpone?
No,
Okay,
it was not passed. There was no second.
okay.
So the motion is passed. Is there any other new business? There appears to be no other new business. I'd like a motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor of adjourning? Thank you very much.